Good evening and welcome all. We open this public hearing on the 2019 budget. And our first speaker signed up is Beryl Fishbone.
Good evening. What I'm going to ask for tonight is that when you're making decisions on the budget, is that you'll be asking questions of those people that need to be asked, whether it's a committee, whether it's a department. I need you to investigate, to meet with them, and to make suggestions. It bothers me when I hear that decisions are being made, but there's been no meetings going on. I need to know what the plan is, not just for this year or the next year, but the year after that, 2 years forward. I'd like you to remember that the same people who made the elected, say for example, the people in your Board of Education were the same people that elected you. So if they've made a mistake there, did they make a mistake with the City Council as well? It's important that you ask questions, not just here in a meeting, but to talk with them, find out with each of the departments what the problems are. What's the roadblocks to making the changes that are necessary to move our city as a whole forward? That's every part of it, not just one particular street or one particular area, but all of us together in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Joyce Worden. And again, please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Joyce Worden, 13 Lost Acres Road in Norwich. And you know me as a member of the Board of Education, a retired teacher from Norwich Public Schools, and a taxpayer, of course, in our city. After a long tenure on the Board of Ed, I made the decision early that I would not be running for re-election this November, so I'm increasingly viewing things through the lens of a taxpayer. But a taxpayer who's had the opportunity of many years with a window on what's happening in our schools. I wish to thank and congratulate 3 of you council members, Alderman DeLucia, Alderwoman Burnham, and Alderman Browning on your forward thinking in proposing the council fully fund the education budget. We need leadership like yours in Norwich that can move us forward. And I quote Mr. DeLucia, "At some point, we have to decide what is the priority in the city of Norwich. Where is Norwich going to invest in its future?" It's so true, so true. However, Mayor Nystrom, Alderman Nash, Alderwoman Philbrick, and Alderwoman Gould held sway with their vote against such forward thinking. I think Bill Kenny's article in the Bulletin, recent article, said it best in reporting the vote, quote, "City Council votes against education quality of life." Mayor Nystrom is quoted as saying that he doesn't trust the Board of Ed to manage their money and that it intentionally overspent its budget last year. It's hard for me to respond to those comments. Even with complete transparency in our budget process, even with Abby's and Athena's ongoing meetings with the city manager and the treasurer, even with the city council representative present at every one of our budget meetings, you don't trust? I mean, we have transparency if there ever was transparency. Alderwoman Gould asked penetrating questions, thank you very much, at all of our budget meetings and indicated her satisfaction with the answers, but her no vote on the school budget indicates that she apparently did not ask the right questions soon enough. However, I was heartened this afternoon that I learned that you had asked for more information about the budget. So there's hope. And more information is always a good thing. As a side note, I can't help wondering if you are asking questions about NFA's budgeting, a full 1/3 of the budget that you rejected. I expect stewardship of my taxpayer dollars, stewardship by you, our city leaders, but I don't hear any questions about NFA's. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rose for Tony?
Rose Fertoni, 67 North B Street, Taffel, Connecticut. I just want to bring forth a thank you for having us speak, but also, please, look at the budget as a whole budget, not just separate entities, education, utilities, whatever. We, as taxpayers, pay this budget, and I frankly am very tired. I've been a taxpayer in my residence 36 years. I am tired of seeing overspent budgets, and then they give extra funds from a different allocation. We have to live our budget at our houses. Why is it okay to do so? So in other words, in July when my taxes come, I could go say, hey, go get it from that fund, because I don't have it. And it's okay? I don't think so. Especially the Board of Education has gone outrageously up. Do we need to have all these magnet schools, all these extra buses that are going from whatever happened to neighborhood schools? I mean, I know you have special education students, you must educate in everything, and the languages, but couldn't we even put all the languages in 1 or 2 schools and have them there instead of everywhere? And also, no, it isn't segregation, I'm sorry, but if they come here and they're not speaking English, they need to be taught the basics first. So let's give them maybe a year starter. Yes, it is a segregation. Give them the grounds to start something that they can hold on to instead of integrating everyone all together. I mean, come on. We need to look at this budget. Like I said, so when my taxes come, okay, I don't have enough. I'm a senior citizen now. Bill, you're the same age as me. We can be collecting retirement. And Peter too. So let's look at this. You know, our pockets are only so deep. You know, I have a grandchild, so it didn't end with my kids being educated, and I did send them to parochial school. That was my choice. I paid the freight. But come on now, when is it gonna stop? When? I really have a problem with every year, it's okay, and I know people that are teachers in the school system and everything. I like the people as people, but this whole budget has got to be stopped, and like Beryl said, you have got to look at committees to see why and what can be cut or what could be cross-referenced and, you know, municipally, you know, share talents. Let's start by doing something strong and hold tight. We need to hold tight and don't open that pocketbook when there's no money.
Thank you. Swaran Singh Kalisa?
I'm Swaranjit Singh Khalsa, resident of 56 Briar Hill Road and a business owner in Norwich and, of course, taxpayer. So, Honorable Mayor and all our City Council member and everybody sitting here, I just have a question which I don't really need reply right now, but I would really like you to think over it. What kind of place we want Norwich to be? What vision do we have for Norwich? Is it worth it to save taxpayers some dollars on the stake of education, which is asset for any community nowadays? I'm here to request you to fully fund our school system so we don't have to compromise safety and quality of education of our children. At the personal level, I really feel blessed to be accepted in the city of Norwich, but I think I will give that credit to my education, which provided me with the vision and the confidence that today I'm here. I'm still confident Norwich can be the best town to live in the city, to live in this state of Connecticut. and we can have the best education system. I really emphasize that we create our plan for economic development for our city and make education as an important stakeholder in it, and market our education system to bring prosperity in Norwich. We do have good housing market, and being serving in the Commission of City Plan, I do see projects coming to our city, and there is a demand for housing. But what we are lacking is the education system, which we can attract more young families to our city, and we can generate some revenue, which we all wanted to do, and we intend to do in one way or another. At the end, I will just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to express myself, and I really hope we can do something so we can fulfill our need for education system and the Otis Library as well, because that's the closest thing our people have to the community center, our library. And so, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Kulos?
Good evening. My name is Mark Koulos. I reside at 327 Broadway in Norwich. After last week's comments, I was angry, but I've had a week to ponder what was said. I now believe that we've been approaching this budget all wrong. We've been asking for the council to approve a budget for something that a majority don't want to pay for. What a majority of this council wants is to pay for babysitters. So I've seen the wisdom of this approach. The education system is broken. The way we pay for education is broken. The kids aren't learning. The teachers are wasting their time. I propose we scrap it all and just pay for babysitters. I propose the NBB, the Norwich Babysitter Budget, or nothing but babysitters. You can also refer to it by its other name, the Nystrom-Philbrick No More Lying Board of Education and the subsidized dawn to dusk daycare budget. It's immensely simple. It consists of 4 numbers and 3 multiplication steps. It fits on 1 page. As you can see in front of you, the 4 numbers are the hourly babysitter rate, the number of hours per day that the service is required, the statutory number of days required, and the total number of children. Firstly, we multiply the hourly rate of $12 per hour, which is a ridiculously generous rate, by the number of hours in a day, say 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 8 hours. We don't want to go over 8 hours a day and run afoul of overtime laws. I've done this multiplication for you. It comes to $96 a day per child. I can help you fill in the blanks in this budget. Please fill them in as required. We then multiply by the state-mandated number of days that the children are in our care. This is set at a minimum of 180 days. This total comes to $17,280 per child per babysitting year. Then we multiply by the number of children required to need this service. There are 6,338 Norwich children in our care. The grand total comes to 10, 9, 5, 2, 0, 6, 4, and 0. That's $109,520,640. As usual with babysitters, they must be paid at the end of each day and in cash. I hope this budget meets your expectations. Remember, nothing but babysitters.
Beth Bellevue?
Good evening. My name is Beth Bellevue. I live at 5 Tower Hill Road in Norwich. I'm not only a lifelong resident of Norwich, but I have been a teacher in Norwich Public Schools for 29 years. As a teacher for 29 years, there have been many changes that have happened in Norwich. The basis of most of these have been due to the lack of funding and support from our city. Let's be fair to the children who rely on the adults in their lives to care for their basic needs. We as citizens have an obligation to meet the educational needs of our children. Adequate funding of the Norwich Public Schools budget is a responsibility that should not be shortchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lottie Scott?
My name is Lottie Scott, and I live at 85 Church Street here in Norwich. I want to say to you that our children are our most precious gifts. They are our children. I come as a citizen, a taxpayer, resident of downtown Norwich since 1978. I'm deeply saddened about the financial situation facing our school system and its potential effects on the needs of our children and their future. How did the city get itself in this mess? Who is minding the store and monitoring the financials of our city? We have a city manager, we have a controller, we have assessors, and so forth. What role did you, as elected officials, present and contribute to this mess the city finds itself in? The city cannot prosper when its children's education is compromised. You need to straighten it out, and not on the backs of our children. No one wants higher taxes. However, all citizens in our city are protected or received services by city departments, including the fire department and the police department. Yet, they all do not pay the same tax structure. Regardless of the past, you as elected officials, you should straighten things out and not at the expense of our children. We cannot go into a prosperous position when our children do not have food at home and other problems. This reflects poorly on the city. This city has a rich heritage. What a sad state of affairs of our city when some of our children do not have sufficient food. Who need to straighten it out? How we treat our children reflects on who we are. Pass the budget and get to work fixing the problem that exists.
Thank you. Marvin Cerruto?
Marvin Cerruto, 100 Star Street, Norwich, Connecticut, United States of America. For those of us who've been coming to council meetings for the last 10 years, we've come a long way. And I congratulate all of you. There was a time where you didn't know what was going to happen with the budget. As a matter of fact, I had to live through a 40% increase. And I only had one person up there that was on my side. And I only had maybe 2 people in the whole audience out here. We've come a long way. We're focusing, we're setting goals, we're sticking to a budget, we're doing all the things that make sense. Don't stop now, don't go back on it. Just because we want to be responsible to the taxpayers and the citizens of Norwich doesn't mean you don't like children. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mark Cook?
Mark Cook, 62 Gulliver Circle, Norwich. I want to note that the members of the Board of Education are public servants just like you, just like the Chief of Police, just like the Fire Chief, who deserve your trust. When the Fire Chief proposes that the department needs new breathing apparatus, we trust that those facts are true and we don't question it. I want to express my appreciation to you, to the city council members and to the mayor for taking the task of maintaining and improving quality of life for the city. And part of that is to maintain or even lessen the mill rate. But the other part of your job is to uphold that quality of life, to attract new businesses and new families. And of course, the schools are a major part of that quality of life. That's what new families look for when they are researching where they're going to invest and grow roots. They look at the schools first and foremost. As far as the mill rate, the fact that, tax increase is one way to address the mill rate, but the other is to look for other sources of revenue. I would suggest, and I have suggested this council for years prior, that they should take more of an ownership and more discussions with Norwich Public Utilities as far as looking into growing solar and wind energy to pay for municipal buildings for power consumption. A lot of other towns in Connecticut do it, a lot of other states do it. And I think we have not. And I think that's a great opportunity to pursue. So please fund our school system and look for other sources of revenue other than taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Karen Cook?
Hello, I'm Karen Cook, 62 Gulliver Circle, and I am here speaking to ask that we fully fund the Board of Education's budget in particular. I am an educator at Norwich Free Academy, and Mark and I have a son who is 14 years old who went through Norwich Public Schools. And I think it's really important that we all become much better educated as to what it means to fully fund the public schools. I think a lot of people are under the impression that we're asking for some kind of pie in the sky, that the budget has frills and extras in it. Really what we're asking for in terms of a fully funded budget is really the very bare minimum. And I would urge everyone, especially people in this room, citizens, council members, to do a line-by-line read of the requested budget of the Board of Education. I think you'd be very, very surprised to see that there's almost nothing in it. There's nothing to cut. When we look at how education funding works, I think a lot of us need to really work to educate ourselves a lot better about how education funding actually works in this state, in this country. A lot of the costs that people are concerned about are actual federal and state mandates that we really can't legislate through a budget. There is nothing to cut. There is nothing to cut. I'd love to come into this council and talk about a real, fully funded education budget, the budget that our students really, really deserve, but what we're really asking for is the very, very bare minimum. So I just urge everyone to please become educated about how school funding works and to really look at our Board of Education's budget. Also, I would just in general like to thank everybody on the council. I really appreciate your public service, and to say especially to Mayor Nystrom that I've always trusted and believed that you have the city's best interests at heart. I've really always believed that. And I'm calling on your leadership in this really difficult time to do the right thing and show the leadership that our city needs. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you. Diane Stone?
Good evening, Diane Stone, Harland Road, Norwich. I am not an educator. I do not have a child in Norwich Public Schools. I am a homeowner and a taxpayer in Norwich. And I've listened to a lot of what people are saying. I think education funding is really complex. I think that modern schools are really complex. And I think all of you, most of you, are in this for the right reason. You're in it because you want Norwich to be a better place. I think as a homeowner, you're not doing me any favors by underfunding the school system, because education is economic development. We heard somebody just say, people come to a city based on its education system, and the education system in Norwich has been chronically underfunded. Somebody else referred to, in your home budget, you have to live within your means. You also have to pay your bills. So I cannot say at tax time, sorry, Norwich, I don't trust what you're doing with the money. I'm not giving you all the money you asked for. You got to pay your bills. And I think that's what we're hearing from education, is the bills are coming due, they're underfunded, so they're running over. It's really sad that you can't trust what they're doing, because I think they've been really transparent. So I trust what they're doing. I'm saying as a homeowner, I will forego any minimal tax decrease and pay my full share to fully fund education. Thank you.
Thank you. Shane Roberts.
Shane Roberts, 16 Church Street, Apartment D. Members of the council, I'm here today voicing my support for the school funding. We have just hired a new superintendent, 2017 Superintendent of the Year in Rhode Island, and we cannot afford to tie the hands of someone so qualified before she has begun her work. As the party that claims fiscal responsibility to be a core value, I would expect the Republican majority of this council to see the problems inherent in under-budgeting a school system that has already been chronically underfunded for years, especially when the schools in question are already sharing resources and cutting benefits. I do not see how it's fiscally responsible to see a system that falls short every year and insists that we continue to underfund it, only to have to scramble to find the money at a later date. Alderman Nash, I sat in these chambers just a few weeks ago as you expounded on your opinion that the state could solve many of its budget woes by putting the money where it belongs in the first place. I would ask why you don't support the same logic at the municipal level, where you have a hand in the decision-making and we're watching a shortfall get built into our school budget. My next point is something I would hope would be close to the heart of our absent Alderwoman Philbrick. I just want to point out that studies have shown a link between lower quality education and higher rates of substance abuse as well as other crimes. Investing in our schools is an investment in reducing crime rates in our city as well as reducing potential suffering of our younger generations. Finally, Mayor Nystrom, as the primary individual responsible for economic development in our city, I would hope that you could see the value of a quality school system in attracting both potential residential taxpayers as well as potential business owners into our city. Higher quality education leads to higher earnings for citizens, as well as more skilled job pools for potential employers to draw from. I would expect that higher quality businesses such as this, who want more skilled workers, would be the kind of businesses that we want to attract into our city for the benefit of the future of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Christopher Coulter.
Hi, my name is Christopher Coker, 25 Parkwoods Drive here in Norwich. First of all, I want to thank the council for serving. I know it can be a difficult job. And you've had some difficult decisions, and I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time to serve to make these difficult decisions. And I know recently you had to make a difficult decision on the budget. And I do believe you made the correct decision. It's in a way difficult to say because we have so many parents and so many educators who frankly are doing the right thing. They're doing what they believe is best to be for their children. And that's certainly not wrong. That's understandable and that's commendable. But unfortunately, times have changed. We are no longer in a society where increased in funding means increased educational scores. The law of diminishing returns say that if we slightly increase funding, it doesn't mean that things are necessarily going to get better. We no longer live in that time where the presupposition, if we just have more money, we have better kids, we have less drug addiction, we have less anything. I wish it were that easy, but it's not. Unfortunately, the next revolution in education is going to have to be what it is in my profession in medicine. It can't be funding, it can't be taxation. We're already hitting that very hard, perhaps to the demise of our economic development. It's going to have to be efficiency. It's going to have to be innovation. And it's going to have to be new and different ideas. And I hope that everyone can agree with that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dennis Slopak, please.
Dennis Slopak, 8 North 2nd Avenue in Taftville. Last week I was here and I beseeched you to do the right thing. And we were met with some very disappointing comments. Mrs. Philbrick's not here tonight, but I would tell her, if she were, that the things she complains about don't get paid for with city taxes. After-school programs, before-school programs, all of these extras are paid either through grant funding or through fees. Has no effect on the taxes that people here in the city pay. Peter Nystrom, I'm so disappointed in you. 7.5 years ago, when I came to this Board of Education, and I negotiated with the teachers' union for a contract, and we were up till 2 o'clock in the morning. We got the teachers to take nothing, no raise whatsoever. We got them to contribute more to their insurance payments than anyone else ever had. You sought me out at a function and told me that that was the first time in history of that union that they ever took a zero. And now you think we're dishonest with you? Hell no. Now, if we look quickly at the budget, this past year, the budget was $98,445,648. The part of the budget that was paid for by grants, food services, preschool, summer programs, and before and after school programs was either grant funded or paid for by fees, and that came to about 17% to 18% of the budget. So that left money coming from the general fund in the city council approved budget to 78 million, let's call it 500,000 just for the sake of quick run numbers. Of that, 32 million of that 78 million is actually ECS money that is passed through the city that comes to us, so it hasn't affected the city's taxation at all. So we're only looking at about $42 million of money that we're asking the city to fund. Everything that we've said is true and honest. We ask you for your consideration, do the right thing.
Thank you, sir. Rick Vendola. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Rick Vendola, 248 Scotland Road. Okay.
It was the intent of Mr. Vendola to yield his time to me.
Cara Vendola.
Same for her. So if you will allow me 6 more minutes.
No. Melanie Elliott.
Good evening. My name is Melanie Elliott, and I live at 43 Green Avenue in Norwich. I'm a preschool teacher at the Bishop Early Learning Center, and I'm here to urge you to fully fund the budget request for the Norwich Public Schools. We no longer live in 1950. Times and education have changed, and looking at the funding of our school based on outdated notions of the world that we live in is counterproductive. My students, ages 3 and 4, come from a wide variety of backgrounds, and many have a wide variety of challenges in their young personal lives and educational experiences. There is no cookie-cutter approach to education. You cannot look at how things were when you were in school and expect that approach to work today. And you certainly can't expect the same funding level to work today. I have heard that some of you plan to come visit the classrooms around our district to better understand the challenges that Norwich teachers face. This is long overdue. By embarking on such tours now, you are admitting that you have not been basing your decisions about our school funding on the full comprehension of what goes on in the Norwich Public School classrooms. I also strongly suggest that you spend more time than just a quick walkthrough in any of the classrooms throughout the district. If you ever hope to truly understand the issues that we are facing today, that we face day in and day out in our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher Burns.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Burns. I live at 21 Ballawonder Drive. Thank you to the council for allowing me to speak tonight. I hear a lot of misplaced aggression from everybody here tonight in regard to the budget. And one of the speakers says we just hired the 2017 Superintendent of the Year. The Board of Education also just hired the 2019 Administrator on administrative leave for misconduct. The salary we're about to pay the new superintendent can be cut. Our teachers are sorely underpaid, and we are teaching our children the wrong thing. I hear day after day all over this city, we need school lunches, we need breakfasts, we need school supplies, we need this. What happened to a parent accountability? What happened to the 6 W's I was raised on? Work will win when wishing won't. It is up to the parents to raise their children and give them what they need, not the Board of Education, not the City Council. The City Council does a fantastic job appropriating funds all over this town. And I hear people complaining about the golf course. The golf course brings in revenue into the city. And I understand that while education is very important, so is making money for our wonderful town. At what point do we stop reaching our hand out and expecting the city of Norwich to be a socialist government where we ask, and rely on the government to feed us, fund us, etc.? It is time for us, and I look around this room and I see a lot of people who are about my age, a little younger, a little older, and many that are very younger, and if you're younger, please listen. It is not up to the government to give you everything you want. It is up to you to work for it. And while I agree with many of the speakers before me that the budget needs to be raised for the school, I also think that the Board of Education needs to appropriate the funds a little bit better and tell the public what they're actually spending it on before everybody comes up and cries to the City Council that their money is not being appropriated correctly. Thank you for your time. God bless Norwich.
Thank you, sir. Desiree Deslus, 21 Dunham Street.
I'm Desiree Deslus, 21 Dunham Street, Norwich. I'm here representing our youth today. They are not yet voters, but they still deserve a voice. And as city council members, you should be representing them as well as the rest of the community. I think that there's a misunderstanding when it comes to the budget and a lot of the comments that Alderwoman Philbrick made at the last meeting. She did talk about our schools being dawn to dusk daycares. I think there's a misunderstanding because the funds for the before and after school programs do not come from the city budget. Parents pay that as well. So for anybody that thinks that that's free, it's not, because I also use that system. And the reason why we need that is because we go to work. Also, the funding that goes for the free lunches and the free meals and backpacks, that all comes from people in the community putting in work. That comes from government grants that give our kids, that feed our kids, that determines if there's a need for it, that our kids should be fed. That's not the city that pays for that. As well as over 40% of our teachers and the people that work at our schools is funded by grants. So how can you say that the parents should be responsible for taking care of our own kids when the city's not even taking care of its own citizens? It's coming from grants. Same thing with the magnet schools. All of that is funding that we have to search for elsewhere in order to make sure that our kids have their basic needs. There's still a lot of needs that need to be taken care of. As far as bringing people into our community, bringing in, attracting new homeowners, because I am a homeowner here. I am a business owner here. I'm volunteering my time at the Norwich Youth Football League. I'm the treasurer there. I was PTO president for 5 years, because that was another comment that Alderwoman Philbrick made, was that, why are these people only here during budget time? It's because we're out in the community. We're serving the community. When it comes to the football field, I came last week because I thought it was going to be an easy vote to fund the irrigation system for the football league, but it wasn't. So that's my time. But thank you.
Thank you. Michaela DeStasio.
Hi, my name is Mikhail DeStasio. I reside at 105 Peck Street, Norwich, Connecticut. As a lifelong citizen of Norwich and an employee of Norwich Public Schools, I urge you to fully fund the education budget. The students of Norwich deserve better than what they have currently. Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Tedford.
It's Ryan Telford. I live at 127 North Wewekas Hill Road in Norwich. I come to you in support of the Norwich Public Schools. We have a moral obligation to stand up for our children. Alderwoman Philbrick's comments last week regarding the school system being a daycare insulted teachers, but also insulted parents and students alike. Her remarks were very hurtful to the entire community, and I believe she owes us an apology. But since she couldn't make it here tonight, I'm going to ask you, Mayor Nystrom, as the senior member of this council, to offer an apology on behalf of your colleague. Ms. Philbrick got one thing right in her comments. She stated that NFA is not an ugly stepchild. She is right. It's a premier institution. There's no doubt about that. But there's another reason NFA isn't an ugly stepchild. Over the past 10 years, they benefited from 22% increase in their budget. Norwich Public Schools, K through 8, have only received 15% increase during that time. And it only takes a few minutes to go into the city records and do the math. Alderman Nash, you sat on this council for much of the last 10 years. I found your remarks interesting last week, stating that the school system and public safety are your highest priorities. You made a calculated political comment that the police department has been cut, but never the school system. That is correct. Last year, the police department was cut by 1%. But what you failed to mention was that over the last 10 years, the police department has benefited from a 64% budget increase. Also, if you go to the FBI website, you'll see that we have 13 more uniformed officers on staff than an average city our size in New England. So they sacrificed 1% last year, but this year, they're due for another 6.4% increase, while the school system is slated for 2%. Over the past decade, Norwich Public Schools have done their part, made sacrifices, and have met the demands of this council. They have closed 3 facilities and eliminated or not filled over 100 positions to meet your budget demands. They have only received, on average, a 1.7% increase every year for the last 10 years, not even keeping up with inflation, all the while creating state-mandated pre-K programs, implementing full-day kindergarten, and improving academic success. And they have done all of this in facilities that are in disrepair. They have sacrificed. The council preaches fiscal conservatism, but it seems only to apply to the schools. Do the right thing, fund the school system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Avalis, Alice. 8 Traders Court.
Good evening, that's Aurelis Alicius, and that's 8 Traders Court, Norwich. I would like to say that as a mother, I have 4 children in the Norwich public school system. I have seen a tremendous change throughout the years with our budget flatlined, programs eliminating, resources and learning compromised. I work for Norwich Public Schools and would enjoy to continue to watch all children succeed with a proper education, not underfunded. To eliminate funding or not fund our education is sending a negative message to families. Families then choose to move out of Norwich because they feel that our education system is not strong. It is sad to see how Norwich Public Schools have to fight for funding so that our education program can properly teach our children who one day will be where you are sitting today. To sit where you are today does not start in high school or college, but in elementary and middle school, where their future begins. So let's fund our schools so that our children, the future leaders, can have a successful education. Our children should be able to succeed just like you have. You're sitting in an important position. Please make the best choice. Also, taking the funding away from the schools will affect the economy due to the families moving out to a better funded school systems, making a decrease in the economy for the city of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you. Kylene Thompson.
Hi, my name is Kylene Thompson. I live at 61 East Town Street in Norwich. I grew up at 39 East Town Street in Norwich. I attended Moriarty, Kelly, and NFA. And then I moved away for 15 years, and about 5 years ago, I came back to Norwich to raise my children here in the town that I grew up in and that my parents grew up in. And I have a lot of love for Norwich, and I was very excited to move back here. I wasn't particularly worried about the specifics of the school system in Norwich at that time, because I knew that I was a responsible parent that would be helping my children along in whatever way they needed. And I believed that educators work hard every day. Somebody spoke about efficiency. And I would just like to say that as a teacher myself, there are many things that we are required to do in the classroom that require us to be efficient. And the budget directly affects that. We cannot do our jobs if we are not fully funded. I want you guys to fully fund the budget, not only for my children's sake that go to Huntington, but for the teachers of Norwich, for the administration that works very hard. I personally see a lot of things online that are blaming the administration in Norwich for what's going on in the schools or what people think is going on in the schools. It's not administration. It is the budget. And you cannot run a school system without the proper funding. You must fund the public education system in our town if you want families like me to move back to Norwich and raise their families here. And I want to say on a personal note that when I did move back to Norwich, a lot of people, Norwich residents included, said to me, why? Why would you come back to Norwich? You lived in San Francisco. You lived in Richmond, Virginia. Great school systems. Why did you come back to Norwich? That's what people said to me. Why would you come back here? Why would you bring your children to this town? And I said, because this is my hometown. I love it. I believe in it. Fund our public schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea Podesra.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand before you today. My name is Fanny Andrea Pedraza. I live at 4 Country Drive. I have 2 children who attend Mahan Elementary School. I come to you as a responsible parent, I believe, not to teach my children today about how to get handouts, but to teach them how to advocate for their right to a free public education. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge you, Officer Nash. I call you Officer Nash because approximately 20 years ago, you were my dare officer.
Apparently I'm as old as Ms. Fatone.
Although I cannot recall the name of my 5th grade teacher, I clearly recall Officer Nash. You made an impact every day on your students, especially me. I remember the high five you gave me when you gave me my certificate, and I felt so proud. I'd like to introduce you today to my 2 kids. This is Teelan and Amalia. My husband and I, we've chosen to raise our children in Norwich because of the fond memories that I have growing up in this town and attending Norwich schools. And my hope, Officer Nash, is that you will stand by my children today like you did with me 20 years ago. But I understand that budgets don't pass only on the virtue of doing what is right. I have compiled some data that I think will be appealing to the City Council. As I understand, there is a drive to revitalize Norwich, to bring in small business and increase home ownership. As a parent, one of the first things I think about when considering home ownership is education, as many have spoken today. One useful tool that I myself have used is a website called niche.com. It provides a grading system that ranks public schools and districts throughout the country. In researching the Norwich Public School District, I am discouraged by the overall score of a C, when surrounding towns such as Preston, Lisbon, Montville, Franklin, and others all have a B or above. This is not because Norwich has a bad education system. In fact, Norwich outranks many of these other districts on teacher scores, administration scores, and diversity. However, our overall score is impacted greatly by a score of C- for academics. Now, we all know that academic achievement is impacted by many factors, but the truth of the matter is that academic achievement will not increase without resources. In fact, the Board of Ed has made it clear and transparent that if we don't receive the funding, our children will suffer. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna Champlin.
Good evening. My name is Johanna Champlin, 64 Great Plain Road here in Norwich. My husband and I have owned our home in Norwich since 2006. I have an 8-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter in the Norwich public school systems. My kids did not want me to leave after I got home from work today, but I had to explain to them that it was very important for me to remind the adults who make the decisions in regard to financing our public school systems, the school that they go to and the school that they love. I had to remind them how important our children's education is. They may have forgotten. I urge you to fully fund our Norwich public schools for my children, for all of the children of Norwich. The children are our future. I urge you to do the right thing and fully fund our Norwich Public Schools. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you. Jessica Kwai.
Jessica Quay, 321 Old Canterbury Turnpike, here in Norwich. I come to you today as a responsible mom of 3 children, one that has special needs, and 2 preschoolers starting in the fall. My son receives several services at school: speech, special education, occupational therapy, several times a week, and he needs your support. So I urge you to fully fund this budget so that he can succeed and be somewhere like you guys are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison Logan.
Good evening. Allison Logan, 9 Ford Avenue, Norwich, Connecticut. I respectfully ask that you fully fund the Board of Education budget. I have a child at Stanton School and a child at Kelly. I was born and raised here in Norwich, and I attended Stanton Teachers and NFA. I had excellent teachers and experiences growing up, and I want the same to continue for my children. I was very upset last week when I heard about the possibility of a no to our budget request, a no to the library, and a no to the athletic field. Underfunded schools without proper staff, supplies, and overcrowded classes are not conducive to a great environment to educate at all. Due to the recent increase of school shootings, don't you think more than ever we need smaller class sizes so students get more time and attention, and also have access to counselors, interventionists, school psychologists, and safety officers? I implore all of you to actually go and visit all of our schools. I want you to see the teachers and the staff hard at work and the students engaging in all the experiences and all the classes being offered there. As a member of the Kelly STEAM PTO, I will personally show you around myself. Teachers and staff should remain where they are and not have to wonder whether or not they have a job next year. So again, I respectfully ask you to fully fund the Board of Education budget for not only my children, but all the children of Norwich. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Generous.
Evening, thank you. I didn't really come planning to talk, but I think it's important to, as a citizen, just to voice my opinion. I have 3 children, and this fall, all 3 of my crazy wild children are going to be in Norwich Public Schools, and they are so excited to have each other in their school. As a mom with 2 kids with some special needs, they have had the best teachers I could have ever hoped for to help them overcome the issues that they're having. They take part in a variety of additional services that are funded in various different ways, and I feel it would be in our best interest to fully fund the school's budget to ensure that all children who need help are able to get the help. Our teachers are receiving the pay that they deserve to receive for the amount of work that they are doing in these schools. And our city can once again be proud of the school system that we have. We have amazing people. You guys, I don't even want to pretend to know what it's like to have to sit up here and have this many people talk to me about what a good or bad job I'm doing. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I urge you to consider fully funding our school's budget to help make this city and our educational system the best it can be for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy Reckworth.
Hi, I'm Stacy Weckworth. I live at 26 Flyers Drive in Norwich. And I came to the April City Council meeting and I urged you to spend some time in the school systems before making any decisions about the education budget. I'm curious to know if any of you were able to do that before voting. I think over the past week, I've heard a lot of teachers, administrators, parents who are really upset about some of the comments that were made. Even tonight in the audience, listening to one of our fellow community members bring up the idea of segregation, people are upset. This is an emotionally charged topic, and I get that. I really feel like it's about economics and business and return on investment. My husband and I have lived in Norwich now for 8 years, and for the past 4, we've done a market analysis on our house every year because we're trying to determine whether or not we feel the school system's headed in the right direction and whether or not this is a community that we want to continue to be a part of. What's concerning to me is that last year, I said to my real estate agent, you know, we have a great house in a nice neighborhood. It would be perfect for, you know, a couple with kids. And she laughed at me and she said, Stacy, we can't get middle-class families to move into Norwich for the same exact reason that you're thinking about moving out. The quality of education. So in asking you guys tonight respectfully to fully fund the Board of Education's budget, I'm not asking you to fix the broken school system. I said last year, we know that the budget itself isn't going to do that. That's unrealistic. The budget is pretty transparent, and it literally just asks you to maintain the system the way that it is. I appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Antonia Rivera.
Good evening. Antonia Revere, 98 Plain Hill Road, also first grade teacher at Waquanic Magnet School. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I felt it was important to get up and ask for your support. I hope you all do the right thing. I hope you fully support our schools. I hope you fully support our children. Mayor, we really look forward to your visit tomorrow. I hope that by coming into our school, you really see how hard we work, how serious we take our jobs, how fantastic our students are, and how much we love them. And you need to know how hurt we all were by Ms. Philbrick's comments. It was truly hurtful. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I cannot read the last name. First name is Michelle of North Burnham Highway. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I also was not planning on talking tonight. My grade level partner just left you. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First thing, Mayor Nystrom, we're so looking forward to you being in our school tomorrow. Please come into our classrooms. Don't just walk by the door. Come in, talk to our kids, spend some time with us, and everyone else as well, all committee, all council members. We would love to have you in our schools, not just once, but come back often. See how truly, truly dedicated we are to our kids, how hard we work, just how much they love being there. They truly, truly love being there. I know that I leave at the end of the day, every day, and I ask myself, what am I gonna do tomorrow so that my kids want to come back the next day? I want my kids to want to be there. But it's getting harder and harder for us to do what we need to do for our kids to want to be in school and learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Stefani.
Good evening, City Mayor, Councilwoman, Councilmen. My name is Kevin Saitani, and I reside at 51 Henry Street. Tonight, I stand before you all in this great chamber to announce eagerly that I support the Board of Education's budget to be fully funded in order to ensure that our students receive a high-quality education that they need and deserve. It is the city's unyielding responsibility to strengthen, perpetuate, and extend this interest not only to our students attending public schools today, but to many students who will attend years to come. The political engagement over education, which has been attained, has grown in magnitude and duration, and does the city and its people no good, and brings about a result less fundamental and astounding. Let it forever be known by all that the city's children are its future. Let us do what is right. Let us strive on to finish the work that we are in so that the political entanglement may speedily pass away. I respectfully encourage this current council to support and fully fund the Board of Education's budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Vivian Lau.
Vivian Lau, 156 Summit Street. I'm 11 years old and I am in 5th grade at the Integrated Day Charter School in Norwich. I grew up in Norwich and I've been going to the library ever since I was a baby. In the library, not only can I check out awesome books, but I also learn a lot too. I have also participated in lots of great events. Please don't cut funding from the library. Doing that could affect the future of Connecticut. First, the library has many fun programs for different ages. For example, when I was a baby, I went to Mother Goose and More, Rhyme Time and Playgroup. When I was a toddler, I saw the Nutcracker there. I enjoyed watching them dance. During the summer reading program, the library encouraged us to read books by giving us cool prizes if we read a certain amount of books. At the end of the summer, they invited someone to put on a bubble show for us. It was an amazing show. I have also made lots of holiday arts and crafts there. It was really fun. So far, I am participating in book club. It is interesting and I made some new friends. If you cut the funding, then people may not be able to go to these events anymore and everybody will be sad. Second, cutting the funding for the library could affect the entire future. Lots of people go to the library to study and do research. If you cut the funding, the library won't have enough money to buy more books. It could affect education. The students would get bad scores and won't be able to go to good colleges and get a good job. The life quality will be worse. No money to go on vacation, no money to buy what they like. The whole economy will fall apart. There will be no people to do the jobs. For example, there will be less and less doctors, dentists, professors, scientists, etc. Without these people, our lives will be horrible. I strongly believe that you should not decide to cut funding for the library. It is a big part of our lives. With it, our lives will be better. Thank you for listening to me read my letter. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes the list of those who did sign up ahead of time. The microphone is still open if someone would like to speak. Sir, again, please state your name and address for the public record.
Rodney Boyd, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I've been coming to these council meetings now for over 50 years. Most of the people in this room I've never seen before. Now, everybody here that wants their children to get an education should remember an old parable of education starts at the home. I applaud Joan Philbrick for saying some things. You don't have to agree with her, but difference of opinion never hurt anybody. We need to have a place where these kids can come back to. If we have taxes that are so high that they can't even afford to live in town, where do you stop? Where do you stop? My whole senior class left town, little town in North Yarmouth. Wasn't one single person stayed in town. You couldn't afford to live there. No jobs. And this is what we have to have. We have to have a balance here. Now, we hired a city manager. He put out 2% more on a budget. Well, that was fine with me. Inflation this year wasn't 2%. It wasn't even 2%. But he did 2%, and I look at the bills I pay a substantial sum of money in this town for taxes. A large sum of money. And I'll do that. I've been living here now for 50-some years. 55, almost 55 years. My children and my grandchildren are going and gone through the school system. And several of them are in professions. Now, I applaud the NFA. They gave the kids a good education. The teachers in Kelly, the rest of the teachers through the whole system, they all excelled and fine. And I was on the board of midget football. They don't deserve the $50,000 because quite frankly, it is premature. Maybe later down the road they can see funding for something like that. But stick the $50,000 in the Board of Education. I've got no problems with that whatsoever. But it would be nice if everybody could have what they wanted, but they can't. And this is something that everybody has to live with. You cannot just borrow money. Someone has to pay for these things, and it's going to be these young people that are going to pay for this. Because quite frankly, I'm on a downhill run with a good tailwind.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, please.
Hi, my name's Angela Fuller, and I live at 21 Ballawender Drive. I also did not intend to speak this evening until I started hearing a lot of the comments. I don't think any of the council members, the mayor, the city manager, anybody has any ill wishes towards the children or the teachers, and I think some of the comments that were put out by the bulletin and that I've heard are very insightful and are twisted around. Ms. Philbrick's comments last night did not anger, or last week, did not anger every single parent. I actually support her. I completely believe in what she had to say. I think if we are going to complain about not having enough toilet paper in our schools, we should be taking a look at the administration's six-figure income salary. I think salaries need to be cut at the top and not be taken from other departments out of the city or not being begged and borrowed and stolen from other places. I think you need to start at the very top and work your way down. Our teachers are in the front line, they're in the gutters. I have 3 kids in Norwich Public School Systems, and never once have I've offered to bring in school supplies. Nope, the school pays for it. Offer to pay for lunches. Nope, the school pays for it. If my kid doesn't have a uniform, they go to the nurse's office and they get a free uniform. There's way too much non-parent accountability going on in these schools. And I think it needs to start at home, and it needs to start at the top of the administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. In back.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Charles Nicholson, 72 Union Street. I left New York 39 years ago and arrived in Norwich, 1980. I raised my only child here in Norwich. My child was born here in Norwich. I taught in regional district public schools from 2008 to 2013. I'm building my home here in Norwich. I've been doing that for a long time. This is not the first go-around, guys. We've been at this rodeo many times. And I witnessed some of the elderly people here. I'm a senior citizen, I'm over 60, but there are some in greater despair than I am that have been paying high taxes in the downtown consolidated district. Any disconnect in the triangular relationship between the students, the teachers, and the administrators, any disconnect in that triangle, we're gonna have chaos. What I witnessed in the school systems, chaos. Why would I, as a retired scientist from Pfizer, try to teach chemistry and calculus when all the kids are on their phone, vaping, coming into the school, no oatmeal in the stomach, and vaping and smoking weed? Come on, guys, wake up. This is not our first time around the road here. We have a broken system. And I'm very proud of the council members over so many years has now decided we have to stop this for the sake of our children. It's chaos what's going on. They're not learning. They're not going to UConn at stores. They're not. Pfizer at Groton is not hiring them. They're going to Shanghai, China. and Cambridge, Massachusetts to look for hungry students. We have to start here home. There's many answers to our problems. We have scientists, we have engineers, we have attorneys right here in this room. And we can't give these kids the recipe from NFA to stores and beyond? I know I can. I've done it before. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
No, they don't.
Hello, everybody. My name's Pete Procco, 27 Cooper Street in Greenville. And I heard a lot of stuff here tonight about paying my taxes. I do all that. I've done everything that we've all talked about tonight. My kids have gone through the system here. My wife's retired from the system. My daughters have taught here. And I've been a contractor. I've owned a business in Norwich since 1978, a successful business as a contractor. And I go back to the Jesuit days. So I know I've been exposed to the Norwich public school system as a contractor also. So I came tonight out of curiosity, and there's 3 observations that I got out of this. First of all, number 1, spending. Like all over this country, in a lot of places, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. As a contractor, I've seen this. And I've benefited and profited from some of the insaneness going back decades of jobs that I was hired to do, where I was hired from the neck down. Just do it. But it profited my company. Thank you very much. So spending is a national problem. Then the other thing is accountability. If you go from, everybody in this room is accountable. I've heard a lot of problems tonight. I haven't heard any solutions from anybody. So accountability starts at the top, goes to the bottom. It's hard work. Work is hard. It's not easy. Work isn't fun. If it was fun, they'd call it play. So that's one thing. And the last thing I'd like to tell everybody in this room that leaves tonight, I want you to come back next year's budget and you come up here and say that you gave 1 day to public service in Norwich, the town you all say you love. Go on Earth Day, pick garbage, go help at a dance, go paint the school. I work at organizations where they have pilot programs, where they go in on a Saturday, they fix stuff, and then they have a dinner after that. And everybody has a great time and they go back every year to it. So I challenge everybody in this room. I've done mine. And there's people in this room that have seen me do it. So on an ending thing, and that goes for all you too. Work harder. And that's all I got to say. So have a good night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the city council, please?
Yvette Jacaruso, 192 Whiteman Avenue. Here I am again, asking you to fully fund the educational budget. But before I go any further, I would like to address this. I did not like the way you, Mayor Nystrom, negatively spoke about the Board of Ed members and your development of the budget because you did not agree with us. That was extremely unprofessional on your part. So we still have a deficit budget since last week, $2 million. How can we work this out? We have $4 million budget deficit. We reduced it to $2 million. We have made a great effort to reduce the budget as much as we can. We rely on grants a great deal, too much maybe, which is not the best way for funding our schools, but we do the best that we can. It was an honest budget developed by honest Board of Ed members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'd also like to address the council who hasn't had a chance. Please.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Hayes, 382 Laurel Hill Avenue, Unit 30. I will start off my comments with addressing to the mayor and the president pro tem, and these are not to be negative comments. These are really comments about over the past 2 to 4 years. You, the members, some of you are new, newly elected a little over a year ago, but to President Pro Tem Nash and to Mayor Nystrom, you've sat here at least 4 years and beyond, and more years than that. Every year we get to the budget, you always end the budget by saying, we're going to sit down and work out a compromise, starting July, starting August with the school board. We're not going to keep going back to this every year where the school board budget gets pitted against the city budget. When do we stop that cycle? When do we sit down? Is there enough time between now and June to sit down and work out a compromise budget? It may not be fully funded for the school board, but it may not be zero funded on your side. When I went to the budget hearing, and this now will include all the city council, when I went to the budget hearing that the school board put on last week, they talked about all we're doing is compounding the budget problem. I know that's what Mayor Nystrom, what you got angry about. The budget deficit is just being compounded. So every year we don't have a compromise. Every year we don't work out what it is the city budget, the city will support, and what the school budget can successfully maintain in order to have an equitable and equal school-funded system. We just keep pushing, compounding what we didn't fund last year to what we didn't fund this year. So next year, is the deficit going to be $6 million? Instead of working out so we shorten that gap where the funding and what is necessary and what the city is willing to support doesn't keep growing. And that's what I'm asking. So earlier somebody asked, what's the solution? The solution is you have about a month before you approve and adopt next year's budget. Will you please sit down with the school board and the city council, work out that compromise so we have a budget from the school board and the city side that we can all move forward, and then really work next year to work on developing a budget that is going to be satisfactory. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak, please? Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Martha Palmer. I reside at 32 Elmwood Avenue. I have two kids that attend Samuel Huntington School. I'm asking you to please fully fund the Board of Education budget. I'd first like to say thank you to everybody in this room, everybody in front of me, the Board of Ed. I appreciate everybody showing up, no matter what you feel. I think it's so important. I am going to share with you, instead of begging you for money, I'm going to share with you a Mother's Day poem. My son wrote me a book. The Feeling of Confusion by Oliver Glenn. He's 10 years old. Confusion is white like a blank paper. It floods through my body and makes me blank. I do not understand. My body is trying to think and understand, but my mind fills me with thoughts, very bland. One side of my body wants to go the other way, and then it stops like a pebble in a cog. One goes down, and the rest falls. I don't understand. I can't understand. My body is just so very bland, But then simply, if you ask for help, that confusion will fly away like a bird to the sunset, gone at last until the next day. I just want to share with everybody, I am so proud that my children go to Samuel Huntington School. So proud. They have gotten the best education that Norwich has to offer. And I'd like for anybody in this room to show me a babysitter who can teach my son to write like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to please address the council who hasn't had a chance? Yes, please.
My name's Marianne Backus. I live at 8 Paddock Lane. I just wanted to say something for my students. They have to face and deal with so much more than most adults face in their lifetimes. They have so much potential and have such high expectations that they're needed to meet. Also, students that come with the gift of another language have so much potential. I had a student who came in as a newcomer with no English language last year, and she is already reading and writing in English in 2nd grade. She is able to speak with students. She has grown so much in just a year of public education. Our students deserve more. They deserve a fully funded education.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council, please?
Brian Kobelar, 16 Hobart Avenue. Came mainly to observe the community tonight, speaking up to the council about what the actual needs are. I think most of them have done a pretty damn good job of it. Proud of them. There are 2 other topics, though, one which didn't get covered as much as it should, and that is the funding for the library. That is ongoing education and knowledge for those that are not in the public school system. It's an asset to the community, provides services that are not available anywhere else. To even think of telling them to tap into their endowment, crippling themselves for any future development, is not only insane, but it just doesn't pay attention to the basic facts. The other thing that I wanted to address, which nobody has touched on tonight, is another thing that was made in the presentation last week, related to the distribution of funding that comes from NPU and its dispersion into the budget. What goes to the general fund? What goes to the CCD? One council member, unfortunately, is not here tonight. She ended up expressing confusion at what these numbers meant. Is it any chance that that same person was the one that sponsored the resolution that made that disparate split in percentages a couple of years ago even greater? If they were confused last week, just what did they base that resolution on a couple of years ago? I want answers. I want the council to do their job based on fact, not on emotional feelings about who's doing what to whom, in what manner. It's time to get real, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to address the council, please? Like to address the council? This would be the 3rd and final request. Please.
John Blackburn, 15 Alice Street. And it's a little confusing. This shortfall on this education budget, am I not right that it is this fiscal year ending June 30th? That $2 million? I know you can't answer, but I think that's what everybody's talking about. My thing is, we all had tax bills. We paid them. They're paid in full. We have, on the property for the houses, you have 2 installments, July and January 1st. I went and paid mine, paid in full. So where does the Board of Education expect to get this money? Give us another tax bill? I don't think so. I don't think it's legal. And the problem is, they need to be more accountable. I agree. Problem is, they know what they had when the budget was passed last year. They had a certain dollar amount. Why are they over that dollar amount? And how come they weren't more accountable and catch it when it started? Not keep, oh, the bills are coming in, bills are coming in, bills are coming in. That's like us taking our bills. Oh, got a bill. Oh, let's pay it. Oh, no, put it in a circular file. And it just adds and adds and adds. It's not right. And then they're talking about adding more money for next year. Where does it stop? The whole problem is, and nobody has really mentioned it, it is the state. They are not sending enough money to the towns. There's 169 towns. You got to divide that money somehow, some way different. But that's where the problem is. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the council, please? Anyone would like to address the city council? Please.
My name is Ato Kadamba, 54 Sherwood Lane. I would like to thank the council members and women and everyone who is here. The question before us here is a very serious one for any town. And I believe that everyone here, we need to give thanks to whoever is serving for public service here for the council. They all have good heart. You know, I don't want us to live here, think that there's one side who doesn't want education, the one side wants education. But that's not the question. The question is what's the priority here? And when we talk about the budget for education, are we looking for the long term or just this budget? Saving maybe, let's say, a couple dollars, I'm just making it up, this year, what impact would that have on one child 10 years down the road? Any city who's talking about education budget shouldn't just look at the budget that's current numbers. It's down the road, 10 years from now, what will be the impact of the action taken today? I have a very sad story. I have a friend who was hired at EB coming from Ohio. Being a good friend, I was trying to convince him to come to Norwich. The first thing he pointed out to me is what I knew before. He cannot come here. I pointed out some time ago that I work at NFA as the chair of my department. I knew family who are moving to the sending town to come to Norwich, to NFA, sorry. But they don't move to Norwich for pre-K to 8. So I even told him that we have very low taxes, that we are cutting taxes for the housing. He said, no. What $5,000 will do to me for my children for 10 years down the road? So I understand, we all understand that it's very tight, but let's just look down the road. If we want to turn this town around, so we have many parameters to work with. Which one will give us a boost so that we can turn the town around? I think that's the question. It's not that it's so expensive, or it's not that it's less expensive, or the job is not being done, or so on. But let's think carefully. You have heard a lot of emotions. You are the leaders. Take that, absorb, and we count on you that you make the right decision. But thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak to the council, please? Anyone like to speak to the council, please? Third and final request, is there anyone who hasn't had a chance to address the council? Please join us. Seeing there's no one else, then I declare the hearing closed, and thank you all for your comments and concerns.